all smiling and looking great. Hey, welcome to Friday. It's Author Chat, and I'm here with author Tom Lewis. He's the author of Solid Ground. There it is, A Foundation for Winning and Work and in Life. And Tom and I worked on his audiobook, of course, recently. It's now available wherever audiobooks are sold. Tom, welcome to the program.
Hey, thank you, David. It's a pleasure to be with you, and it was a pleasure recording this book with you.
We had a good time, didn't we? And I tell you, I said it while we were working together. I learned a whole lot. You have a tremendous history building a profoundly successful building company, building all kinds of things over the years, and then you had an exit. So you come from a place where you built from zero this amazing company, the culture of it. Succeeded and then exited. What a beautiful cycle. And now, as I understand it, you're spending most of your time helping others do good things in the world. So it's great to have you here. I want to ask you a little bit about what called you to write the book?
Well, two things. One, I had a lot of experience with young high school and college students. And over the last 20 years, I could see how their ideas had changed. They kind of shifted, to make it simple, from kind of an ambitious group to kind of a passive, self-absorbed group. And that's a very general statement. Certainly doesn't apply to everybody, but it could definitely, I could see the trend. And so I became concerned about that. That was the number one reason. And then also, I've been a student of success my whole life. And it seemed like the success trend seemed to be making it more and more simple, from, from 7 Habits of Stephen Covey to 1 habit of grit, and success requires a lot more than one thing. I don't care what you label it or what word you make up for it. In this case, grit. So it's a lot more complex than that. I actually have 10 different pillars in my book that I think are all necessary to really build your life on solid ground and achieve success. So that's why I wrote the book. And it was, I think, in another way, kind of a message to my children. A lot of things as a dad, you want to say to your children, but in the hustle and hassle of life, you never get quite around to explaining it quite the way you would like to. And so I think something that is and to my grandchildren too.
It really did have a feeling of legacy. And of course, as the producer, I get to listen to you reading your own words, telling your own story to me. The book is structured. You start with your personal journey, and you really go through a lot of it. There's the emotional side. There's the family side that I recall that you let us in on your personal side quite a bit, and how you thought about things then, and how your thinking evolved as you went through these different stages of business and ultimately starting your own after having worked for, I believe it was Trammell Crow for a long time, as you say. And then the part 2 is the foundation of success. So much of this is about personal character, isn't it, Tom?
Well, it is, and that's why I listed it as the number one part of your foundation. But the reason I told my own story, one, was just to kind of, it was somewhat cleansing, just to go through it and kind of tell it to myself. Yeah. But the main reason I think that I put it first was that as people read my story, they start thinking about their story. I've had so many people comment to me that because we all think about ourselves, and when we read about anybody else, we reflect on what does that mean to me. So I think that's a good thing, that people can start beginning to think, what is the trajectory of my life? What is, I recently had a really good employee resign from my company because he read the book and saw that he had stayed too long in one job. And I think, and I actually had to congratulate him, as I always do when somebody has the courage to leave a job, because it's hard.
Yeah.
But it really was a good time for him to leave. So there are a lot of lessons there. But you just can't have a life of success without adhering to the age-old principles of personal character, call it virtue, and hard work. Those are the 2 big ones. And you can't believe the nonsense about working smarter, not harder. And you just have to. Yeah. I don't care how tech savvy you are. A few people get lucky, or not lucky, but a few people can make it, like Mark Zuckerberg or Steve Jobs. But those are very few. The rest of us have to kind of pull the wagon the old-fashioned way and put in the time.
You're reminding me of something, and I'll paraphrase. Neil Armstrong had said about people remember him as having been the first man to walk on the moon, but really what he was focused on throughout was the little things every day, the little achievements every day in the course of his business as a scientist, an astronaut, and a pilot, test pilot. So I found that fascinating. And some of the way you think about things, it really was clear that you're in the moment. I just want to show folks the cover. This is Solid Ground, is Tom's book, T.W. Lewis, Foundation for Winning in Work and Life. And of course, pun intended, you having been a very successful builder for so many years, I can't avoid the pun of the foundation.
Another thing on personal character, David.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
And I've really tried to pull not just my thoughts, but the thoughts of many other thinkers and great thinkers and writers.
That's
and
right.
try to kind of create somewhat of a highlight reel. So you can kind of, reading this book is kind of like reading 5 or 6 success books at once. But one of the parts in there about character is that we break it down into 2 parts: performance-based character and moral character. And that came from an author named Jim Loehr, who wrote The Only Way to Win. But, like hard work, that's a performance-based virtue. That's a good thing. But it doesn't make you a good person. It makes you a good worker. Humility is just an example of a trait that makes you a good person, or integrity. But there's a difference between performance character traits and moral character traits. And that's just a good thing to understand as we try to become better people, in both categories.
And what struck me and it really kind of hits on the point you just made, is your capacity to make decisions and advise us, the reader, about how you framed decisions as you were going through, whether it was about starting a new job or how you got something funded, or there were various examples I can remember in the abstract without having the text in front of me and not the time to peel back the layers. But I just recall this decision-making framework to be very fascinating and very helpful, even to me in my own business.
Yeah, well, all the success books that I've read, and that's most of them that have been written in the last 50 years, not one of them really talked about the power and the importance of making good decisions. And I think there's a quote in there that might be mine that says, anyone who makes good decisions consistently will be successful. That is so much more important than being smart. So our culture values IQ and somebody that's smart or intelligent,
right.
But I would take a very average intelligent person who made good decisions over a very, very high IQ person who did not every time.
Right.
It's decision making. And then the hard one is really taking smart risk. I think in our culture today, more so than before, we've been kind of coached, or our students, our children are being coached to be safe and to be careful. And this pandemic is not going to make that go away. There's this idea that we have to be safe. But if we're always safe, we never get the rewards, and the risks are necessary to get the rewards. And so that's
really, yes, they really do go hand in hand, don't they? There's always some amount of risk with a decision you're making, isn't there?
Absolutely. Nothing is totally safe except treasury bonds. And they're not even safe now.
The book is Solid Ground, A Foundation for Winning in Work and Life. We've been visiting with Tom Lewis, T.W. Lewis, as you see on the cover here, available wherever books are sold. Tom and I did the audiobook, and that is now out and available as well on Amazon, Audible, and iTunes. Tom, thanks so much for being with us. I appreciate it.
Great to see you, David. Thank you.